Hey everyone, today we're diving into the Samaritan Revolts, which took place between around 484 and 573 AD. These were a series of intense uprisings in the Palestina Prima province, where the Samaritans fought against the Byzantine Empire. Now, both sides were incredibly violent during these revolts, and the Samaritans faced brutal suppression, especially at the hands of the Byzantines and their Ghassanid allies. This crackdown left a huge impact, practically wiping out much of the Samaritan population. In fact, it changed the region's demographics entirely, making Christians the dominant group for decades to come. So what led to all this conflict? After the Jewish-Roman Wars, the once thriving Jewish community in the region had almost disappeared, except for a few areas like southern Judea, Galilee, and the Golan Heights. With the Jews no longer the majority, Samaritans and Byzantine Christians filled the gap in central parts of the southern Levant, while other groups like the Nabateans and Ghassanid Arabs settled on the outskirts. Interestingly, this period was actually seen as a sort of golden age for the Samaritans. They rebuilt the Temple of Gerizim after the Bar Kokhba revolt around 135 AD, and for a while they enjoyed a bit of independence, especially during the 3rd and 4th centuries. Their leader, Baba Rabba, was a big figure during this time. He reorganized the Samaritan territories, installed local rulers from aristocratic families, and even set up state institutions. He also made important reforms and helped shape Samaritan religious practices. Unfortunately, this period of semi-independence didn't last long. Byzantine forces eventually overran Samaria, and Baba Rabba was captured and taken to Constantinople, where he died in prison around 362 AD. Then, during the reign of Byzantine Emperor Zeno, things really started heating up. There was growing tension between the Samaritans and the Christians, especially in Neapolis, now modern-day Shechem. According to Samaritan sources, Zeno persecuted the Samaritans mercilessly, even forcing them to convert. When they refused, many were killed, and their synagogue was rebuilt as a church. Zeno also took Mount Gerizim, a holy site for the Samaritans, and built a tomb for his son there, putting a cross on top so the Samaritans would have to prostrate in front of it during worship. In 484, the Samaritans had enough. Rumors were going around that the Christians were planning to move the remains of Aaron's sons and grandsons, and this provoked the Samaritans to revolt. They stormed the cathedral in Neapolis, killed the Christians inside, and even mutilated the bishop Terebinthus. They then crowned their own king, a man named Justa, and headed to Caesarea, where there was a large Samaritan community. There they killed many Christians and destroyed the church of Saint Procopius. But this victory was short-lived. The Byzantine commander Asclepiades, reinforced by local troops, managed to defeat Justa. He killed him and sent his head back to Emperor Zeno as a warning. And after the previous revolts, things escalated again in 529 with the Ben Sabar revolt, led by a messianic figure named Julianus ben Sabar. Now, this revolt is often considered the most violent of all the Samaritan uprisings. According to some sources, the violence flared up because the Byzantine authorities had imposed new restrictions on the Samaritans under Emperor Justinian's rule. Others believe it was more about the ongoing tensions between Christians and Samaritans. So, the rebels, led by Ben Sabar, launched massive riots throughout the Samarian countryside and quickly took control of Neapolis. Ben Sabar was then proclaimed king, and he made it clear that he was staunchly anti-Christian. His forces killed the local bishop, Amonas, and many other priests, while also persecuting Christians, destroying churches, and setting up guerrilla warfare in the countryside to drive Christians out. In response, the Byzantine Empire sent in their forces, supported by local governors and the Ghassanid Arab allies, to crush the rebellion. Ben Sabar and his forces were eventually surrounded, and after a fierce battle he was captured and beheaded. His head, crowned with a diadem, was sent to Emperor Justinian as a symbol of victory. By 531, the revolt had been completely crushed, and tens of thousands of Samaritans either died or were enslaved. Some sources suggest the death toll was as high as 100,000. This revolt was a turning point for the Samaritan community. Emperor Justinian, with the help of his allies, nearly wiped out the Samaritan population, and their faith was practically outlawed. According to Byzantine historians, the Samaritan peasants who defied the empire were cut to pieces, and the land of Samaria, once incredibly fertile, was left barren with no one to farm it. But the revolts didn't stop there. In 556, yet another major uprising broke out. This time, it wasn't just the Samaritans but the Jews who joined forces with them. The rebellion started in Caesarea, where both groups attacked Christians, killed many of them, and looted their churches. The local governor, Stephanus, was eventually killed while trying to hide in his own home. However, this revolt didn't gain as much momentum as the Ben Sabbar revolt. After some fierce fighting, the rebellion was put down again by the Byzantine authorities, and many Samaritans were killed, tortured, or driven into exile. Some reports claim that up to 120,000 were massacred, but that figure might be exaggerated. And even after that, tensions continued to simmer. In 572, under Emperor Justin II, there was yet another Samaritan Jewish revolt. This time, the Samaritans were responding to attacks on their religious sites, and it led to more violence. By now, the Samaritan population had dwindled significantly, especially after so many revolts and forced conversions.